Om Vishwandarpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyannijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirvodbhutan Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Svatmanameva Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्रीपरमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ वासुदेवेन्द्रयोगीन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानप्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधोऽभिधीयते. So I welcome you all to the 53rd class of the Fundamentals of Vedanta series. Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. Tattvabodha gave out the essence of the Vedantic teaching in this Sutra Vakyam, that you are a higher order of reality and everything else is in a lower order of reality. And an understanding of this fact itself is moksha. Because the moment one truly understands this fact, one is liberated from all sense of apurnatvam that can arise due to changing mithya vastus, due to coming and going of mithya vastus. And it is not that I have to become this satyam. I already am this satyam. And that is why just seeing, knowing what is, knowing my nature itself liberates. Jnanad eva tu kaivalyam. So how does Vedanta teach this? It presents this teaching using using a three-pillared approach. The first pillar is Brahma Satyam. The second pillar is Jagan Mithya. And the third pillar is Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. So Brahman is Satyam, Jagan is Mithya, Jagat is Mithya. So this is presented through the Srishti Prakriya. As we saw in the beginning, before this manifestation came about, there were two factors. The attributeless, changeless consciousness, that is Brahman, which is the Vivarta Upadana Karanam, the changeless material cause. And then there is a second factor called Maya, because Brahman alone, which is changeless, attributeless, cannot account for this plurality that we experience in the world. Therefore, the second factor called Maya is brought in, and Maya is this unmanifest world, just as the entire tree is unmanifest in the seed. The entire movie is unmanifest in the DVD. The entire dream world is unmanifest in the waker's mind. Similarly, this entire world that is about to emerge is unmanifest in Maya. So, Maya is this unmanifest world. And the world is nothing but manifest Maya. And Maya is presented as the Parinami Upadana Karanam, the changing material cause. Therefore, the manifestation of this entire world requires these two factors, Brahman and Maya. And Maya is dependently existent. Brahmashraya Maya. Maya depends upon Brahman for its existence. It doesn't have independent existence. Brahman alone has independent existence. And therefore, the world, which is nothing but an evolute of Maya, also depends upon Brahman for its existence. Therefore, Maya is Mithya, and the world that is an evolute of Maya is also Mithya. Therefore, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. This is taught through the Srishti Prakriya. Then one may ask, okay, let Brahman be Satyam, let the Jagan be Mithya. What has that got to do with me? This is where the third pillar of the teaching comes in, and it says, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha, that you are identical with Brahman. And when we put this together, we can say, Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya. Because Brahman is Satyam, Jagat is Mithya. And Brahman is the same, identical with the Jiva. The true nature of the Jiva is Brahman. And therefore, Aham, whatever I have been saying, I am that Satyam, Brahma. And the Jagat is Mithya. Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. We come to the Sutra Vakyam of Tattvabodha. So how does Vedanta teach Jivo Brahmaiva na Paraha? It teaches this through the Mahavakya Vichara. As we saw, the Mahavakyas are the sentences in the Vedanta that reveal the identity of Jivaha and Ishvara, Jivatma and Paramatma. But as we said, when one hears the Mahavakya, the mind protests because Jivaha and Ishvara are diametrically opposite. Jiva has got inferior attributes, Ishvara has got superior attributes. How can they be one? So this is where we saw that the understanding of these sentences requires one to come to the Lakshyartha from the Vachyartha. The Vachyartha refers to the total meaning of the word, a meaning of the word that refers to the total object, whereas Lakshyartha refers to the meaning of the word which is filtered, which is not the total object. And as we said, we use this lakshyartha in the understanding of various types of sentences in the world. When somebody tells me this Devadattaha is that Devadattaha, then in this sentence, this Devadattaha and that Devadattaha are diametrically opposite. If we were to take the Vachyartha, which is the total meaning of this Devadatta, and the Vachyartha, which is the total meaning of that Devadatta, then there can never be any equality. As we said, that the Mahavakya is an equation. In an equation, the two sides look dissimilar, but still there is an underlying oneness. Similarly, here, this Devadatta and that Devadatta, they look very, very dissimilar, but still there's an underlying oneness. And if I have to get the message of this sentence, then I have to come to the Lakshyartha, the intended meaning of this Devadatta and the intended meaning of that Devadatta. And how do I come to the Lakshyartha? By removing the superficial attributes of this Devadatta and the superficial attributes of that Devadatta, and then I recognize that there is an underlying one person who's behind this Devadatta and that Devadatta, and that is the message being communicated. So similarly, if I were to take the Vachyartha of Jiva, And that is the Shariratrayam plus the reflected consciousness plus the original consciousness is the total meaning of the word Jiva. If I were to take the Vachyartha of Ishvara, then it's the Prapanchatrayam plus the reflected consciousness plus the original consciousness. This is the total meaning of the word Ishvara. And the Jiva in this case, when we take the total meaning, has got inferior attributes, Ishvara has got superior attributes. There clearly cannot be any identity. But still, the Mahavakya equation is there. It is telling me that there is an underlying identity that I have to know about. And how do I arrive at this identity? By setting aside the Shariratrayam. When I set aside the Shariratrayam, then I set aside the reflected consciousness also. And what is left is the original consciousness, which is the Lakshyartha of the Tvampada. And then when I set aside the Prapanchatrayam, then I set aside the reflected consciousness also. What is left is the original consciousness, which is the Lakshyartha of the Tatpada. In the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. And then I see that as the original consciousness, indeed there is an identity. There is one original consciousness behind the Jiva as well as Ishvara, just as there is one person behind this Devadatta and that Devadatta. So it is really this one consciousness that is appearing as two. And therefore, for the student who gets the message of the Mahavakya, what is left is one Advaita Atma. One Advaita Atma is left behind. There is Jivatma, there is Paramatma, but behind them there is one non-dual Atma. So one comes to this one Advaita Atma. That I am. That the student understands, that is what I really am. So before coming to the Mahavakya, the student has two misconceptions. One is that Ishvara is Paroksha, Ishvara is somewhere remote. And the second misconception is that I am Parichinnaha, I am limited. Now, after the understanding of the Mahavakya, both of these misconceptions are knocked off. Because one is left with one Advaita Atma. We can say it is Aparoksha, Aparichinna Advaita Atma. He understands that Ishvara is no longer Paroksha. Ishvara is not remote. Why? Because this very I, that is here and now, the very word I that I have been using all my life is referring to this original consciousness, which is this one Advaita Atma, that is the same consciousness behind Ishvara also. If Ishvara were to say I, Ishvara would refer to the same consciousness that is present here and now in the form of my I. This I. So Ishvara is not Paroksha. This very I is referring to that Brahman which was there at the beginning of this Srishti, along with Maya, from which the entire Srishti has emerged. That same Brahman is here in the form of this I. So Ishvara is not Paroksha. And then the moment one recognizes this, simultaneously one also knows that I am not Parichinnaha, I am not limited, because as Brahman, I don't have any of those threefold limitations of space-wise limitation, time-wise limitation, or object-wise limitation. I am limitless. I am Aparichinnaha. And therefore, what is left behind is this Aparoksha, Aparichinna Brahma Atma. Advaita, Aparoksha, Aparichinna, Brahma Atma is what is left behind. There is one non-dual Atma, that is what is left behind in the vision of the student. And that Atma, that non-dual Atma, I am. And as that Satyam Brahma, I am Purnaha, I am limitless. So this is the knowledge that the Jivanmukta comes to. So as Tattvabodha said, Evam cha, Vedantavakyaihi Sadgurupadeshena cha Yesham Sarveshvapi Bhuteshu Brahma Buddhir Utpanna Te Jivanmuktaha Bhavanti. Te Jivanmuktaha Bhavanti. So these, the one who has gained this knowledge, who has this knowledge, they become Jivan Muktas, liberated even when living. How do they become Jivan Muktas? Evam cha, in this manner, Tattvabodha says that in the exact same manner as I have taught. In what manner? Vedanta Vakyaihi Satguru Upadeshena cha. Through a consistent and systematic study of Vedanta as taught by a guru. Vedantavakyaihi Sadguru Upadeshena cha te Jivanmuktaha bhavanti. Yesham Brahma Buddhir Utpanna, in whom this knowledge of Brahman has arisen. And what is this knowledge of Brahman? As we said, Brahman can be known only in one way. And that is as I am Brahman. There is no other way of knowing Brahman. Knowing Brahman can be done in only one way, which is claiming that I am Brahman. That is the only way of knowing Brahman. Because if there is any other way of knowing Brahman, that means that I have made Brahman into an object. The moment Brahman becomes an object, Brahman becomes limited. So the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman not because he has become something new. He already was Brahman. He just didn't know it earlier. Earlier he did not know I am Brahman. Now he knows I am Brahman. Earlier he did not know I am Brahman, so he took himself to be something else. Now he knows I am Brahman, so the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. Sarveshvapi Bhuteshu, the moment he knows I am Brahman, he knows that I am the only Satyam here behind all the Namarupas. And therefore he knows that I myself am the Atma behind every Jiva. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarvabhuta Shayastitaha. I alone am the Atma in all of the living beings. I am the essence behind every Nama Rupa in this creation. Sarveshvapi Bhuteshu Yesham Brahma Buddhir Utpanna Te Jivan Muktaha Bhavanti. They become liberated. Liberated from what? Liberated from samsara. How did this samsara arise? We saw the three steps to samsara. The first is Ajnanam. And Ajnanam leads to Adhyasa. Non-apprehension of reality leads to misapprehension of reality, not knowing who I really am. That I am Purnam Brahma. I mistake myself to be something else. I am the body-mind. And once I take myself to be the body-mind, I am Apurna. But I can't stand my Apurnatvam, and therefore I struggle to gain Purnatvam. Therefore, Ajnanam, Adhyasa, and this struggle to gain Purnatvam is what we call samsara. So there is an endless struggle to gain Purnatvam through the pursuit of the first three Purusharthas. But whatever I accomplish in the domain of the first three Purusharthas leaves the root Ajnanam untouched. And therefore it leaves the Adhyasa untouched. And therefore this notion that I am Apurnaha continues no matter what I accomplish in the field of the first three Purusharthas. And even death does not end this because the Karana Sharira is intact, the ignorance is intact. As long as the Karana Sharira is intact, there is a Sukshma Sharira, and there will be newer and newer Sthula Shariras with every Janma. And in every Janma, the same story repeats I am Apurnaha, I need to become Purnaha. Struggle, struggle, struggle. So endless struggle for fulfillment through the pursuit of the first three purushartha, the samsara, and the Jivanmukta is free of this struggle. How did he become free of this struggle called samsara? By removing the adhyasa, by removing the notion that I am apurna. How did he remove this adhyasa? By removing the ajnanam that covers the fact that I am Purnam Brahma. How did he remove the ajnanam? By bringing in jnanam that I am Purnam Brahma. How did that jnanam come? Vedanta vakyaihi Sadguru Padeshena cha. Through the consistent and systematic study of Vedanta as taught by a guru. Te Jivanmuktaha bhavanti. So Tattvabodha says this is how one becomes a Jivanmuktaha, one who is liberated even when living. So then the student has a question, a further question about who this Jivan Mukta is. What is it that makes a Jivan Mukta a Jivan Mukta? So the student asks this question. So that is the next portion in the Tattvabodha, and we will read that. And I don't know if Sharadaji is here today. I don't think Sharadaji is here today. So Venkatji, will you be able to say after me?
I will try.
Sure. We will read that portion. Nanu Jivan Muktah Kaha
Nanu Jivan Muktah Kaha
Yatha Dehoham Purushoham
Yata Dehoham Purushoham
Brahmanoham Shudroham
Brahmanoham Shudroham
Asmiti
Asmiti
Dridha Nishchayah
Drhanishchayaha
Tatha Naham Brahmanah
Tata Naham Brahmanaha
Na Shudraha Na Purushaha
Na Shudraha Na Purushaha
Kintu Asangaha
Kintu Asangaha
Satchidananda Swarupaha
Sachidananda Swarupaha
Prakasha Rupaha
Prakasha Rupaha
Sarvantaryami
Sarvantaryami
Chidakasha Rupaha
Chidakasha Rupaha
Asmiti
Asmiti
Dridha Nishchaya Rupa
Drana Nishchaya Rupa
Aparoksha Jnanavan
Aparoksha Jnanavan
Jivanmuktaha.
Jivanmuktaha.
So the student asks, Nanu Jivanmuktah Kaha? Who is a Jivanmuktaha? You said Te Jivanmuktaha Bhavanti. I want to know more about this Jivanmuktaha. What is it that makes a Jivanmuktaha a Jivanmuktaha? The student wants to know more details because he said, Yesham Brahma Buddhir Utpanna Te Jivan Muktaha Bhavanti, in whom this Brahma Jnanam has arisen, they become Jivan Muktas. So, the student wants to know, is curious to know more details about what this Brahma Buddhi really means. So, the Guru gives the answer here and he says, Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivan Muktaha. Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivan Muktaha. So again, Tattvabodha reiterates that the main characteristic of the one who is liberated even when living is this knowledge. Aparoksha Jnanavan, meaning he has this knowledge, and it uses a term called Aparoksha Jnanam. What is this Aparoksha Jnanam? That's the next question. Vedanta classifies knowledge into three categories. One is called Pratyaksha Jnanam. The second is called Paroksha Jnanam. And the third is called Aparoksha Jnanam. So let us say that there is a proximate object, an object near me. For example, this pen. So I'm looking at this pen. This is a proximate object, an object near me. So such an object can be objectified by my senses. So I can use Pratyaksha Pramanam to know about this object. I can use my eyes and see this object. So such a knowledge is called Pratyaksha Jnanam. This object is called Pratyaksha Vishayaha. Now let us take the Himalayas. Let's take the Mount Everest, for example. So that is not a proximate object. It is very far away. Therefore, my senses cannot objectify it from where I am. So that's a remote object. This is a proximate object. That is a remote object. The remote object is called Paroksha Vishayaha. But I still have knowledge of the Mount Everest. It is indirect knowledge. That kind of a knowledge is called Paroksha Jnanam. Paroksha Jnanam is knowledge about a Paroksha Vishaya, a remote Vishaya that I have not objectified with my senses. The proximate object, remote object. Pratyaksha Vishaya, Paroksha Vishaya. So now the question is, what is Atma? What is the knowledge of Atma? Is it Pratyaksha or Paroksha? We say that the knowledge of Atma doesn't come under Pratyaksha Jnanam, it doesn't come under Paroksha Jnanam also. Now, why is that? Because Atma is not an object at all. It is not a proximate object like this pen. It is not a remote object like Mount Everest. Atma is present here and now. As the very subject, it is never an object. And therefore, the knowledge of Atma cannot be called Pratyaksha Jnanam. So that is knowledge of proximate objects. It cannot be called Paroksha Jnanam because that is knowledge of remote objects. And therefore, Vedanta uses this term called Aparoksha. Aparoksha is the term used for Atma, I. Knowledge with regards to I is called Aparoksha Jnanam. Therefore, Atma is Aparoksha Vishayaha. It's called Nitya Aparoksha. And the knowledge of Atma is called Aparoksha Jnanam, which is basically Atma Jnanam. So now the question is, where does this knowledge arise? So where does this Atma Jnanam arise? So here the question is, who gains Atma Jnanam? Since this is not directly discussed in Tattvabodha, but since this topic of Aparoksha Jnanam comes up, this is a very appropriate moment to discuss this point, which has been discussed in other Vedantic texts. So who gains Atma Jnanam? Is it Atma or Anatma? So we cannot say that Atma gains Atma Jnanam because Atma is nirvikaraha. Atma is changeless, attributeless, changeless consciousness. And knowledge requires a certain change. Earlier there was ignorance, and then ignorance is removed with knowledge. And knowledge involves a certain process, a certain change. And Atma is changeless. So Atma cannot gain Atma Jnana. Moreover, Atma need not gain Atma Jnanam also because Atma is already liberated. Atma being Satyam, Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. Atma being Satyam is already liberated. Atma need not be liberated. Therefore, Atma need not gain Atma Jnana. Then the question is, if Atma doesn't gain Atma Jnanam, can Anatma by itself gain Atma Jnanam? Like, can the mind by itself, the body and the mind together somehow gain Atma Jnanam? We say the body and the mind are inert. They don't have any consciousness of their own. So the body and the mind also by itself, separately from Atma, cannot gain Atma Jnana. So who is it that gains Atma Jnanam? There are only two things, Atma and Anatma. We have eliminated both. What we say, it's really the mixture of the two that gains this Atma Jnanam. So any knowledge, not just this knowledge, any knowledge requires a mixture. Even the knowledge that this is a pen, Atma cannot gain the knowledge that this is a pen. Because this gaining the knowledge, this is a pen, involves change, and there is no change possible in Atma. Similarly, Anatma by itself also cannot gain the knowledge. So any knowledge, transactional or spiritual, requires a mixture of Atma and Anatma. So the knowledge arises in the reflected consciousness that is there in the reflecting media, backed by the original consciousness. So the mixture of the three, the RC, the RM, and the OC is what gains Atmajnana. So I have to use the body and the mind to know that I am not the body and the mind. So we say that the knowledge cannot take place, for example, in deep sleep. In deep sleep, the mind has been resolved completely. Mind is resolved. Therefore, no knowledge can take place in deep sleep. Similarly, even in samadhi, nirvikalpaka samadhi, where one has transcended the anatma, where the anatma is again resolved, at that point also there is no duality. In that non-dual state of samadhi also, knowledge cannot take place. Knowledge requires pramana to be there, pramata to be there, prameya to be there. And the prama has to arise. This is the process of knowledge we have seen. Therefore, knowledge requires duality. Knowledge can take place only in a state of duality. So I have to use the body and the mind in the state of duality to know that I am really the non-dual Atma. Therefore, we say that we have to have the RM and the RC. We cannot knock off the RM and the RC and say that I have gained the knowledge. It is not possible to gain knowledge that way. So now, the question is, what is this Aparoksha Jnanam exactly? In what form does it take place? So we say that Atma is of the nature of consciousness. And consciousness by itself is not opposed to ignorance. Ignorance and consciousness coexist. If consciousness by itself was opposed to ignorance, then nobody should be ignorant, because everybody, there is consciousness in every Jivatma. Atma is there in every Jivatma. And therefore, if consciousness itself was opposed to ignorance, nobody should be ignorant. Everybody should have self-knowledge. There should be no Atma Ajnanam at all. But then ignorance is there. Consciousness is also there. And consciousness is not opposed to ignorance. Why is consciousness not opposed to ignorance? If we were to ask this question, it is because consciousness belongs to a higher order of reality. If you have to have an opposer opposed relationship. You have to have a destroyer-destroyed relationship. Now, such a relationship is only possible between two entities in the same order of reality. This is a crucial Vedantic law. There can be a destroyer-destroyed relationship only between two things in the same order of reality. There is real water by my bedside, but then in the dream I am thirsty. The real water by the bedside is of no use in quenching my dream thirst. I need dream water to quench my dream thirst. Why? Because only dream water is in the same order of reality as the dream thirst. The real ointment by the bedside is of no use in healing my dream wound. Different orders of reality. I need a dream ointment to heal my dream wound. The real weapon by the bedside is of no use in killing the dream monster. Again, different orders of reality. I need a dream weapon, a dream sword to behead the dream monster. So only two things in the same order of reality can have a destroyer-destroyed relationship. So now ignorance is in the lower order of reality. Consciousness cannot destroy this ignorance. Consciousness, in fact, happily coexists with ignorance because they are different orders of reality. Then how is this ignorance destroyed? Vedanta points out that one needs a vritti in the mind. A thought has to arise in the mind. So Atma Jnanam rises in the form of a vritti, in the form of a thought in the mind. That Atma Jnana vritti is also mithya, just like ignorance is mithya. And this mithya Atma Jnanam destroys this mithya ignorance. This mithya Atma Jnanam vritti, which is of the form I am Brahman, this thought arises in the mind. And this vritti destroys the ignorance because it is on this in the same order of reality as the ignorance. So this mithya vritti has to arise in the mithya mind. With the mithya upadesha of the mithya guru who is expounding on the mithya shastra. And this mithya jnanam destroys the mithya ignorance. So this is how the ignorance goes. Sureshwaracharya, who was Bhagavad-pada Shankaracharya's main disciple, one of the four disciples, he gives an example in his text called Naishkarmya Siddhi, where he talks about the sun. The sun is brilliantly shining, but there is a leaf there. The sun cannot burn this leaf. But when one places a magnifying glass and then the rays of the sun are concentrated on the leaf, then the leaf burns. So similarly, consciousness cannot destroy this ignorance, but when in the presence of consciousness, this vritti, Atma Jnana vritti arises, then that is what destroys this ignorance. So now, Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivanmukta. So in this Aparoksha Jnanam, we had also come across this term when we were discussing that story of the 10th man. So there we talked about 7 stages that the 10th man goes through. Ajnanam avriti vikshepascha parokshadhihi aparokshamatihi Shokamoksha triptihi nirankusha. We talked about the 7 stages that the 10th man goes through. So here too, these terms Aparoksha and Paroksha Jnanam were discussed. So the first stage is Ajnanam. The 10th man is not aware of his own status of being the 10th man. Ajnanam, Avritihi, and therefore the ignorance covers. Ignorance always covers a fact. Therefore, Ajnanam is followed by Avritihi, covering of the fact that I myself am the 10th man. Tadvad Vikshepaha, the third stage is Vikshepaha. Once the fact that I am the 10th man is covered, then there is Vikshepaha, misunderstanding, misconception that the 10th man is missing. And then I have to embark on a search for the 10th man. And then all of this struggle follows where the 10th man is searching for the 10th man. Ajnanam avritihi vikshepaha. And the struggle continues until the 10th man comes across this passerby who tells him that the 10th man is there. I can produce the 10th man for you. So when he hears these words that the 10th man is there, that is Paroksha Jnanam. It is like Mount Everest is there. I am taking somebody's word for it. I myself have not seen the Mount Everest, but I have read about it in so many places that I take the word for a fact. But this is different from direct knowledge of Mount Everest. I know that Mount Everest is there. Similarly, the 10th man knows, okay, I trust this person. He seems like a reasonable person. I'm willing to take his word. Then the 10th man is there. It's called Paroksha Jnanam. And then the passerby lines them all up and makes them count. And finally, he tells the 10th man that you are the 10th man you have been seeking. At that point, he understands that I myself am the 10th man I have been seeking. So this is different from the knowledge that the 10th man is there. Now he knows the 10th man is there, all right, but I myself am the 10th man. This is called Aparoksha Matihi here, or Aparoksha Jnanam. And this is followed by Shoka Moksha, which is removal of his grief. And Triptihi, Nirankusha, attainment of fulfillment. These are the 7 stages of the 10th man. So now coming to the Jiva. The Jiva has got these same 7 stages. The first is Ajnanam. The Jiva is not aware that I myself am this Purnam Brahma, Satyam Brahma, that is Purna. He is not aware of Ajnanam. And this Ajnanam covers this fact, Avritihi. And then there is Vikshepaha. Because this fact is covered, because I don't know my real nature, I mistake myself to be something else. I take myself to be this body mind. And then Apurnatvam and this struggle for Purnatvam. All of this comes under Vikshepaha. And this struggle continues until this jiva comes across a guru due to some past punya, fructification of punya. And the guru tells him that this Nitya Vastu, Brahman, is there. So when he hears these words of Vedanta, that Brahman is there. At the beginning of Srishti, Brahman is there. Maya is there. So this is all Paroksha Jnanam, indirect knowledge of Brahman. Srishti Vichara leads to indirect knowledge of Brahman. Srishti Prakriya leads to Paroksha Jnanam of Brahman. Shraddha in the Veda Pramana. And Veda is telling me at the beginning of Srishti, Brahman was there. This is Paroksha Jnana. Brahman is Paroksha. Ishvara is Paroksha. But then comes the Mahavakya Vichara. And the Mahavakya Vichara, Jiva and Ishvara are equated. The Guru tells him, Tat Tvam Asi. that Brahman you are, that Ishvara you are. So this Mahavakya Shravanam leads to the Aparoksha Jnanam that I am Brahman. This is distinguished from the Paroksha Jnanam that Brahman is. In this case, the student now says, I am Brahman. This is called Aparoksha Jnanam. And this leads to Shoka Moksha, the freedom from sorrow, and Triptihi, Nirankusha, limitless fulfillment. In case of the 10th man was Paroksha Jnanam. I am the 10th man, is Aparoksha Jnanam. In case of the Jiva, Brahman is Paroksha Jnanam. I am that Brahman is Aparoksha Jnanam. So Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivanmukta. Now, what kind of Aparoksha Jnanam is this? He gives further details. He says, Dridha Nishchaya Rupa Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivan Muktaha. Dridha Nishchaya Rupa. This is a firm conviction of this Jivan Mukta. He has this firm conviction that I am Brahman. It is not this wishy-washy, hand-wavy knowledge. It cannot even be called knowledge, really speaking. Some idea, vague idea that I am Brahman is not what liberates. A firm conviction that I am Brahman. Dridha Nishchaya Rupa. So how firm is it? How firm is it? This is where he says, Yatha dehoham purushoham brahmanoham shudroham asmiti dridha nishchayah. So if you talk to an Ajnani, the Ajnani says, I am so and so. And he gives his whole biography that I was born on such and such a date. I went to this college and I did this. I worked here and so on. And then he goes on and on. I got married on such and such a date. I have these many children, etc. So he gives his whole biography. And he's very convinced about it. That is the reality. Dehoham, I am this body. What more are you talking about? I am this body. And then Brahmanoham, Purushoham, that I am male. Clearly, I am a male or I am a female. Brahmanoham, Shutroham, I am a Brahmana. I was born in a Brahmana family. I am a Shudraha, I am a Vaishyaha, I am a Kshatriyaha, etc. The Varnashrama Abhimana is there. I am a Brahmachari, I am a Grihastha, I am a Vanaprastha, I am a Sannyasi. So, a person who doesn't have the knowledge may have such an abhimana with regards to the attributes of the RM. Because this person doesn't know the OC at all. He doesn't know the original consciousness. He has taken this RC to be the original. He has mistaken the RC to be the original, and then he has mixed up the RC with the attributes of the RM, the reflecting media. So he's taking the attributes of the body mind to be my attributes. Dehoham, Purushoham, Brahmanoham, Shudroham. Asmiti Dridha Nishchayaha. This is his conviction. He's totally convinced about this. And if you go and tell him, no, 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 you are Brahman, etc., he will say, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. This is what it is. I am this. I am this much. That's it. So Yatha, just like the Ajnani is convinced, he says, Tatha naham brahmanaha na shudraha na purushaha. So this Jivan Mukta is convinced that I am Brahman. I am not this. I am not a male. I am not a brahmanaha. I am not a shudraha. I am not a grihasthaha. I am not a vanaprasthaha. All these attributes, they belong to the body mind, they belong to the reflecting media. They have no bearing on the OC at all. The original consciousness is not affected by these incidental attributes of the body mind, of the reflecting media. Just as when I am standing in front of two distorted mirrors, let's take one distorted mirror. Whatever distortion that mirror is showing has no bearing on my original face. The distortion is there because of the reflecting media that is reflecting my face. The distortion doesn't belong to the original at all. The original is this attributeless consciousness. That is what I am. So all of these are attributes of the reflecting media. They don't belong to the original consciousness at all. And therefore, he can happily wear this costume of the body mind and continue to play roles in the world. But he knows the attributes of the costume belong to the costume, not to the actor. The attributes of the role belong to the role, never to the actor. So there is a particular reference here in Panchadashi where Vidyaranya Swami talks about this. Dehatma jnanavat jnanam dehatma jnana badhakam atmanyeva bhavedyasya sa nechanapi muchyate. The self-knowledge is very much like dehatma jnanavat jnanam. Like this Ajnani's knowledge that I am this body mind is so convinced about it. Dehatma jnanavat jnanam. That Deha is the Atma, there is no other Atma. I am this body. Dehatma jnana. This is Dehatma jnana. I am the body knowledge. Dehatma jnana vat jnanam. This jnanam of the Jivanmukta is similar to this jnana, this so-called jnanam of the Ajnani. He is so convinced about it. Similarly, the Jivanmukta is convinced. Dehatma jnana vat jnanam, dehatma jnana badhakam. But the knowledge of the Jivanmukta displaces the knowledge of the Ajnani. This I am Brahman knowledge displaces this I am the body and the mind knowledge. Dehatma jnana badhakam. One can only have one of these two, not both. One can see either the snake in a state of ignorance, or one sees a rope in the state of knowledge. One cannot see both the snake and the rope. Or even if we say that there is something like a snake that appears, he knows it is false. The rope is the reality. So Dehatma Jnana Badhakam, it displaces this I am body knowledge. Atmanyeva Bhavedyasya, in whom this knowledge arises. Sa nichhannapi muchyate, sa na ichhannapi muchyate. Even if such a person doesn't want to be liberated. Na ichhannapi, he says, I don't want liberation. But if this knowledge arises, he is choicelessly liberated. Why? Because the knowledge is that I am this ever liberated Brahman. So knowledge and liberation cannot be separated. The moment the knowledge arises, liberation is an immediate consequence of it, because the knowledge is that I am this ever liberated Brahman. Tatha naham brahmana na shudraha na purushaha. So he says all of these are attributes of the reflecting media. They belong to the body and the mind, not to this original consciousness that I am. Then what am I? Kintu asangaha. Kintu asangaha. This asangaha is an extremely, extremely important word that Vedanta teaches about the nature of Atma. In fact, it is my personal favorite word. If I were to pick one word in Vedanta, it would be asangaha. Because the implication of this is just enormous. So if you were to understand what this word asangaha means, it means there is no sangaha. What does Sangaha mean? Sangaha means relationship. If we take any object in the world, any object in the world, then it always has three relationships. There's three types of Sangaha. And what are they? First one is called Sajatiya Sangaha. Sajatiya Sangaha means relationship with another object of the same species. For example, if we take a pot, then a pot we can say is placed next to another pot. So we can say these two pots are next to each other. This pot is related to that pot, or you could place a pot on top of another pot, etc. So we can talk about a relationship between two pots, or a relationship between two cows, or a relationship between two humans, etc. So this is called Sajatiya Sangaha, a relationship of an object with another object of the same species. Now, there is another type of relationship possible where an object is related to an object from another species. For example, a pot is related to a cloth. You can place a pot over a cloth and then say that this pot is now touching this cloth. There is a certain relationship. Or the cloth may cover the pot. There is a relationship between the cloth and the pot. Or there may be a relationship between a person who owns a cow and the cow. So this is Vijatiya Sambandha, Vijatiya Sangha. So Sajatiya Sangha, Vijatiya Sangha. And the third is Swagata Sangaha or Swagata Sambandha, meaning an object is made up of parts. So an object can be related to its own part. For example, a cloth is made up of threads. So we can talk about a relationship between the cloth and its threads. So these are the three types of Sangha, Sambandha that is possible for any object in this entire world. You pick any object, you can talk about three types of Sambandhas, and only these three types of Sambandhas. Either the object is related to another of its own species, or it's related to another object from a different species, or it's related to some part that is within the object. Now, does Atma have any of these three sambandhas is the question. Does Atma have Sajatiya Sangaha, Sajatiya Sambandha? So Atma appears to be many because there are many jivas. So we can talk about the Atma of every jiva. Or we can talk about Jivatma and Paramatma, Jiva and Ishvara. But as we have studied, even though Atma appears to be many, really speaking, Atma is only one. One Atma alone appears as many. There's one Atma that is Brahman, and everything has emerged from Brahman. And Brahman alone is in the form of Atma behind every Jiva. So Sajatiya Sambandha requires another object of the same species, but since there is only one Atma, we cannot talk of Sajatiya Sambandha because there is no other Atma that this Atma can be related with. Atma is one, and therefore there is no Sajatiya Sambandha. Then the next question is Vijatiya Sambandha possible? Can Atma be related to an object that is of a different species than Atma? Then what is a different species other than Atma? There are only two species, really speaking. There's Atma and then there's Anatma. So then the question is, can there be a relationship between Atma and Anatma? Can there be Vijatiya Sambandha between Atma and Anatma? We say Atma satyam tadanyat sarvam mithyeti. Atma is satyam and anatma is mithya. Because all anatma, the primordial anatma is maya, which is mithya, and then the entire world is an evolute of maya. So every anatma is mithya. So then the question is, can there be a sambandha between satyam and mithya? We say there can never be any sambandha between satyam and mithya. A man sees a girl in his dreams. Can he marry that girl? Can the waker marry the girl he saw in his dreams? Impossible. Why? Different orders of reality. The mirage water can never wet the sand. If there was a real sambandha between the mirage water and the sand, then mirage water should wet the sand. But mirage water can never wet the sand. Why? Different orders of reality. So we say there can never be a sambandha, there can never be a relationship between satyam and mithya. There can never be a real relationship. Atma is satyam, anatma is mithya. Therefore, there can never be a real sambandha between Atma and Anatma. Therefore, there can be no vijatiya sambandha for Atma also. So, sajatiya sambandha is ruled out because Atma is one. Vijatiya sambandha is ruled out because Atma is the only one. Atma being Satyam is the only one in its order of reality. There is nothing else in the same order of reality. Therefore, Vijatiya Sambandha is also impossible for Atma. The third question is then, is Swagata Sambandha possible? Can Atma be related to its own parts? We say that Atma is partless, Niravayavaha. Atma doesn't have any parts at all. Attributeless, homogeneous. There are no parts at all. So there cannot be any relationship between Atma and its parts because Atma has no parts at all. And therefore, Atma cannot be related to any blessed thing in this creation. Sajatiya Sambandha is not there, Vijatiya Sambandha is not there, Swagata Sambandha is not there. Therefore, Atma cannot have any Sambandha at all. This is something that one has to dwell over. Atma, I am not related to anything at all. There is no connection between me and anything else. Relationship means a connection. I am not connected to anything at all. So no matter what happens to that thing, I am unaffected. This is the consequence of knowing that I am Asanga. So just like in space, a pot may be made. Space is not affected. The pot may go, again, space is utterly unaffected. Similarly, Atma is utterly unaffected by anything that happens because it is Asangaha. So, Kintu Asangaha. There is no connection between me and anything else. Therefore, even this body comes, body mind comes, Atma is not affected. Body mind goes, Atma is not affected. Therefore, even the death of this body doesn't affect Atma at all. Because there is no connection with the body. Really speaking, this I'm saying this I that refers to the Atma, I have absolutely no connection with this body and the mind. That is what Asangaha means. So any virtues of this body and the mind, they cannot uplift the Atma. Any vice of the body and the mind also cannot affect the Atma. Just as the sun light falls on a puddle or clean water. The sunlight is not affected by it. The sun is Asanga when it comes to the puddles or clean ponds, whatever, they don't affect the sun at all. So Asanga, Satchidananda Swarupaha. I am of the nature of Satchidananda. I am of the nature of Sat. I am the Satyam, Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyati. I belong to a higher order of reality, Sat Swarupa. I am the one that really exists. I lend existence to everything else. Sat Swarupa. I am Chit Swarupa. I am of the nature of consciousness. Everything else is inert, incapable of having even an iota of consciousness. But I lend consciousness to the body mind and I enliven the body mind. The consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. Consciousness, I, the consciousness, am an independent principle that pervade the body and the mind and enliven them. I, the consciousness, am not limited by the boundaries of the body mind. I, the consciousness, survive the death of this body mind. And the surviving consciousness that I am cannot be transacted with in the absence of the body mind, not because I am not there, but because there is no medium for interaction. Just as the moon comes, then the sunlight is reflected on the moon. If the moon goes, then the sunlight is not affected by it. But the sunlight cannot be seen at night in the form of this reflected moonlight. You cannot transact with the sunlight at night in the form of the reflected moonlight in the absence of the moon. That doesn't mean the sunlight is not there. Chit Swarupaha. And I am of the nature of Ananda, Ananda Swarupaha. I am limitless, full, whole, and complete. This is my nature. I am limitless. This is Ananda. This is my nature. And in a conducive state of mind, I myself, my wholeness, fullness is what manifests in a conducive state of mind in the form of happiness that I experience. So any experiential happiness, it is not arising because of happiness belonging to some object or to the body mind. In the conducive state of mind, when I am in union with the object of my desire, in that conducive state of mind, my nature, which is Atmananda, alone reflects in the mind in the form of experiential happiness. Satchidananda Swarupaha, Sarvantaryami. Just as when the wave realizes that I am water, and as the water, I am behind every wave. Similarly, this Jivanmukta who knows I am Brahman, I am Satyam Brahma, knows that I am the Atma behind every Jiva. Sarvantaryami. Chidakasha Rupaha. Here, the consciousness Chit is compared to space. I am the space-like consciousness. So we are very used to thinking that I am a person, a formful person. But then Vedanta is teaching me that I am really the formless consciousness. I don't have any form at all. Just like space, space is formless. So when a comparison is done, it is because there are some common attributes between the two things being compared. For example, if I say that a person is like a lion, Devadattaha is like a lion. That means that the Devadattaha shares some attributes with the lion, like, like the bravery, for example, or majesty. So similarly here, consciousness is being compared to space. That means that there are certain common attributes between space and consciousness. So one of them is this formlessness. Space is formless. Akashaha, Vayuhu is also formless. Agnihi is the first Panchabhuta with a form. Vayuhu is formless. Akasha is even subtler than Vayuhu, and it's also formless. Similarly, consciousness is also formless. It appears in many forms, but consciousness per se is formless. Nirakaraha. Similarly, space cannot be divided. One may say that I am creating this pot, and now I am closing the pot with a lid, so there is space within the pot, and then there is space outside the pot. I have divided space. But if one says this, then that is not the right understanding. Really speaking, space cannot be divided at all. Then how is it that I am dividing space because there's space within the pot and space outside the pot? We say you have not really divided space because even the walls of the pot, they are in space only. Space pervades the walls of the pot also. And therefore, this creation of the pot hasn't really divided space. There is space within the pot, there is space outside the pot, and even the walls of the pot are in space only. In fact, the entire pot is in space. So the pot hasn't really divided the space. Similarly, consciousness cannot be divided at all. The consciousness that I am divisionless. Akhanda. I am akhanda. But isn't this body and the mind enclosing consciousness? We say that even in this body and the mind, the walls of this body and the mind, the so-called boundaries of this body and the mind that I am drawing, they are also within consciousness. And they cannot divide consciousness. So consciousness is formless, nirakaraha. Consciousness is divisionless, nirvikalpaha. And then consciousness is also blemishless, like space. If there is a pot, and if I'm putting some object with a bad smell in it, or let's say that I am just carrying an object with a bad smell, then that can pollute Vayuhu, all right. Vayuhu can be polluted, but space cannot be polluted by it. Space is untouched, where whatever bad smelling thing comes up, space is not touched by it. Similarly, consciousness is also blemishless. Consciousness is nirmalaha, untouched by whatever happens in consciousness. So, formless, divisionless, blemishless. And space doesn't have any boundaries. It's boundless. Similarly, consciousness also is boundless. As we have seen, in fact, the whole of space arises within consciousness. Any idea of boundary arises within consciousness only. Consciousness cannot be subjected to any boundaries. Limitless. And as we have seen, consciousness is asangaha, space is asangaha, consciousness is also asangaha. Space is not connected to anything within the space. Similarly, consciousness is not connected to anything that appears in consciousness. These are the common attributes between space and consciousness, therefore, Chidakasha Rupaha. And Prakasha Rupaha, consciousness is compared to light. So if you see, we have talked about this, that consciousness is self-revealing or self-evident. And in presence of consciousness, everything else is revealed. I can say this is a pot only because there is consciousness. If there is no consciousness, I cannot talk about existence of other things. So now let us imagine this situation that I am in a dark room. And if I'm in a dark room and let's say I have a mirror, and I shine a torch on this mirror, and then I am basically pointing the mirror to various things in the dark room. So when I do that, then there's a patch of light that appears at various places in the dark room because the light of the torch is falling on the mirror. The mirror's light, the mirror's reflected light is falling on various things in the dark room, and then I can see things. So we say that whenever I know some object, then in the world, light is required to know the object. So the object itself may be non-luminous, in which case it needs a luminous object to know that object. Like the moon is non-luminous, but I know the moon only because sunlight falls on the moon. So the sun is self-luminous and the moon becomes luminous because of the sunlight that is reflected. So in the transactional world, I need light to know everything. But what Vedanta points out, that any object that I take, even luminous objects that I take in this world, like the sun or the stars, etc., or the lightning, any of these that I take, they cannot be known unless there's a light of consciousness. So let us say the sun is there, but my eyes are closed. My eyes have not come in contact with the sun. And no matter how luminous the sun is, then knowledge of the sun, that the sun is there, cannot be revealed. If my eyes are blindfolded, then I cannot see the sun, even if the sun is shining in all its brilliance. So what is required is for the eyes to contact even a luminous object like the sun. What to talk about non-luminous things? Certainly the eyes need to contact any object to know the object. But we are taking even the luminous objects like the sun. The eyes need to contact the sun for the sun to reveal itself. So really speaking, the sun is revealed because of the light of consciousness that is there in the eyes. But do the eyes possess this light of consciousness that reveals the sun? We say no. We say the eyes need the backing of the mind. The eyes themselves have borrowed this light of consciousness because the mind is there behind the eyes. Even if the eyes see the sun, but the mind is somewhere else, then the knowledge is not registered. So the mind backing is required. But then does the mind have the light of consciousness of its own? We say no. The mind has to have the backing of Atma. It's because the Atma is there, the Atma is of the nature of consciousness, the mind borrows this consciousness. And because of that, the sense organs borrow this consciousness. Because of that, even the luminaries in the world are revealed. Therefore, we say, Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi tameva bhandam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. So even these luminaries like the sun, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam, or this moon, or the stars, chandra tarakam, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agnihi. And even these flashes of lightning, or even this fire that I show with the camphor, kutoyam agnihi. These are all luminaries in the world that are able to illumine other things. But these luminaries cannot reveal themselves unless the light of consciousness is there. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. All these shine because the light of consciousness is there. They shine after the light of consciousness. Just as we took this example of the mirror and the torch and the patch of light that illumines everything. Right? So if I'm looking at a pot in the dark room using this mechanism, then the pot is revealed because the light falls on it from the mirror. But does the mirror have its own light? No, the source of the light is this torch. Similarly, here the mind is shining with consciousness, the eyes have this light of consciousness, and that is what makes this apparatus makes everything reveal itself. Even the luminaries like the sun, the moon, the stars, etc., the lightning. All of these reveal themselves because of this apparatus. But this apparatus, where does it get this light of consciousness from? Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. It is the light of Atma that illumines all this. Atma alone is of the nature of consciousness, prakasha rupa. So these are the words that the Jivanmukta uses. We saw Yatha dehoham purushoham brahmanoham shudroham asmiti, just as the conviction of this ajnani is there, tatha dridha nischayah, tatha naham brahmanah na shudrah na purushah, that I'm not any of these attributes that belong to the body and the mind. These attributes belong to the body and the mind, not to this consciousness that I am. I am asangaha, not connected to anything at all. Satchidananda swarupaha. Prakasharupaha, I am of the nature of the light of consciousness. Sarvantaryami, Chidakasharupaha, I am like space, all pervading and unaffected by everything. Dridha Nischaya Rupa, Aparoksha Jnanavan, Jivanmukta. So, this is the knowledge of the Jivanmukta. Then, what are the practical benefits of the knowledge if we see? There are several practical benefits. The knowledge translates into various things that are beneficial in vyavaharika, in one's daily life. So Swamiji points out these 5 benefits, practical benefits of this knowledge. Since we are in the last section of Tattvabodha that talks about this jnana phalam, which is the benefit of the knowledge, we are bringing in this topic also. The first is jigyasa nivrittihi, that for an ajnani, ajnanam is there. And because of the ajnanam, there is all this ajnanam about the nature of the jivaha, the nature of Ishvara, what this world is, who am I, who is Ishvara. For a jnani, the ajnanam is gone. And therefore, all of these questions, who am I, who is Ishvara, what is the nature of this world, all these are answered. Because these questions are answered doubtlessly, is why this person is a Jivanmukta. As we said, Dridha Nischaya Rupaha. He has got a firm conviction about the answer to these questions. Therefore, Jigyasa Nivrittihi is no more a Jigyasuhu. When there is jigyasa, then there is always these questions. And the human mind cannot be at comfort when there are a lot of unanswered questions. They bother the mind. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What is going to happen after death? Is there rebirth? Where is Ishvara? What is the nature of that Ishvara? Is Ishvara like this? Or Ishvara like that? All these questions all swept aside in the Jnani's mind, because he knows that I am Brahman, Purnam Brahma, and I am one with Ishvara. And this Jagat is an appearance that is mithya. So all of this jigyasa nivrittihi, all of these questions don't bother the Jnani anymore. Then there's vidyananda praptihi, second benefit, that he knows I am Purnam Brahma. And as Purnam Brahma, I am limitless. I am full, complete. This knowledge itself leads to a conducive state of mind in which the Atmananda is reflected. And therefore, there is, when the Jnani contemplates on this fact that I am Purnam Brahma, he experiences happiness. This is Vidyananda, a happiness that arises out of this knowledge. So all of this anxiety, worry, etc., they are all removed in the Jnani's mind. Because he knows firmly that I am Purnam Brahma, I am Satyam Brahma that is unaffected. And even if there is some reactions in the mind, he very clearly knows I am not the mind also. And therefore there is this Vidyananda Praptihi. The body and the mind are limited, but the limitations of the body and the mind don't affect me. I am full, complete, limitless, nevertheless. Vidyananda Prapti. And then there is Karpanya Dainya Nivrittihi. He is no more hankering after pleasures of the world. Because earlier, in the state of Ajnanam, these pleasures of the world are what gave happiness now and then. But then, now he has this independent source of happiness, Purnatva. Therefore, he doesn't have to depend on the world for Purnatvam. Just as a person who has a well in the house doesn't need to depend on this water supply from the corporation. If the water comes in the pipe, that's a bonus. If the water doesn't come in the pipe, he has his own well. And therefore, if there are pleasures in the world that come into his life because of prarabdha, then he takes that to be a bonus, but he doesn't go after chasing them because he doesn't need to. He knows I am Purna, I am complete, irrespective of whatever is there or whatever is not there. Then there is aghata nivrittihi. This jnanam itself acts like a shock absorber. All these vehicles, they have got these shock absorbers. So if the vehicle goes over bumps, then the people in the vehicle, they don't feel the bump. So similarly, there will be shocks in the world. There will be shocking news that comes here and there, now and then. But then this jnanam acts like a powerful shock absorber. It's like a kavacham, a jnana kavacham, a shield. Or like a raincoat. A person has a raincoat, he walks in the rain, he doesn't get wet because the raincoat protects him. Similarly, the jnanam protects him. It gives him emotional immunity, so to say. This jnana kavacham. So even if there are shocks, this jnanam acts like a protective layer that shields him. It is not that the problems will be not there in life at all for a jnani. Problems will be there, situations will be there, but the same situations lose their sting in the presence of jnana. Just as the stars shine brightly in the night sky, but the moment the brilliant sun emerges, it is not that the stars have disappeared. Stars are very much there, but they don't shine like they were shining at night time. Similarly, the problems are there, but the problems lose their sting. Why? Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. If the Jnani hears something for the first time, he may say, what? See, the mind hasn't become a stone. The mind still will have a reaction. It will say, what? But then the Jnani will very soon bounce back. There's tremendous resilience because of this Jnana. He bounces back and then moves on. Nothing can result in an emotional trauma that happens to an ajnani. An ajnani can get devastated by news of the wrong kind. A jnani has enormous resilience because of this jnana. Nothing at all in this world can devastate a jnani or even bring him close to any state of devastation. He always bounces back. because he knows I am utterly unaffected. Asanga. And then there is dakshata praptihi, because all these cross currents in the mind of worry, anxiety, fear, etc., they are gone. Whatever task is at hand, the jnani can do it very efficiently. Dakshata praptihi. So these are the practical benefits of the knowledge. But then the primary benefit is moksha. He knows that as Atma, moksha is my very nature. Moksha is not something to be attained. In fact, as Satyam Atma, I don't even have to attain moksha. I don't need to attain moksha because moksha is my very nature. I am a mukta. In fact, he knows that Atma was never even bound in order to be liberated. Therefore, as this Satyam Atma, I don't even need liberation. Need to attain liberation because as Satyam Atma, I have always been liberated. Therefore, he has attained what needs to be attained, has accomplished what needs to be accomplished. He knows I am Purnaha and can wear this costume of the body mind and go about doing whatever needs to be done in this world. Just like a cricket team that is playing a 5-match series, and this team has won 3 matches out of the 5 matches. Now, what is their attitude when they play the remaining 2 matches? They know I have won this series. Whatever the outcome is, I am unaffected. They know that. So similarly, the jnani can wear this costume of the body mind and go about, interact with the world, and whatever the outcomes are, they don't affect him at all. He has won the series of life. He has accomplished what needs to be accomplished. He knows I am Purnaha. Whatever happens to the names and forms, I am utterly unaffected. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.